In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that it never was known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Well, good evening. So I'm happy to be here tonight and just share with you how Jim and I raised our 5 children. And I'm going to tie that into the beautiful feast of the Immaculate Conception, which is on December 8th. And first, she mentioned our son, Luke, but I thought I'll go ahead and tell you our 5 children and then tie that into the Immaculate Conception. And so we have 5 adult children. We have 2 sets of twins. So our oldest set of twin girls are age 26, and one of them is married with 2 children, and the other one is working and getting her master's degree. Our third daughter is 23, and she's getting her master's degree, and she's single. And then we have boy-girl twins who are 20 years old. Luke is our only son, and he's in the seminary. He's in his 2nd year to be a priest. A Catholic priest, and then his twin sister is married. So all of our children are still practicing their faith. We're so grateful for, and still very close to us now that they're off on their own. The family is still very close, so we're very grateful. So Jim and I come from broken families, so we weren't able to use our parents as examples of, how do we do this? How do we raise these children? So we've been very blessed to be very close to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church and its traditions and all the resources it has provided everything we've needed as parents. Tonight, I'd really like to emphasize with all of you that, the Church does provide everything that we need. And so first, I'd like to talk about the Immaculate Conception. So the Immaculate Conception, the Blessed Virgin Mary, was conceived without any stain of original sin. And that was important for the mission that God had for her. So she was to bear Jesus, who would be born and be our Redeemer. In order for that to happen, she had to be completely pure. The Church, from the very beginning, always believed in the Immaculate Conception. But as time went on, Pope Pius IX in 1854, he declared it a dogma of the Church so that future generations would have this truth to hold on to. God the Father prepared the Blessed Mother. He gave her everything she needed to be the mother of Jesus. So the Pope wanted to make sure that all future generations knew of this important mission of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And 4 years later, in 1858, the Blessed Mother appeared to Saint Bernadette in Lourdes, France, and that was another seal that God wanted to show that he wanted her Immaculate Conception to be known throughout the world to all of us. So when Saint Bernadette saw the Blessed Virgin Mary, she didn't know who this beautiful lady from heaven was. So she asked, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am the Immaculate Conception." And so that confirmed in the Church that she's to be known by that title. More information that helps us is in the Old Testament. When the Israelites were traveling through the desert on the way to the Promised Land, they would fall into sin. And they would ask Moses, please pray for us. Please ask God to dwell in us so that we won't sin anymore. So in the book of Exodus, in the Old Testament, in chapter 33, verse 5, Moses asks God to dwell in the people, dwell in them so that they won't sin anymore. And God tells him that I can't. If in all of my majesty and glory, if I dwell in these people with even the slightest bit of sin, I will destroy them. Like, they cannot contain me. So to prepare the Blessed Mother to be able to contain Jesus, the Son of God, she had to be immaculately conceived, no stain of original sin. This is beautiful for us as parents. We have sacramental marriages, and God made it a sacrament because a sacrament is instituted by God to give us grace. And in this world, this crazy world, we need the grace to be able to raise our children, to prepare them for whatever vocation God has planned for them. Either the vocation of religious life or the vocation to be married. And as parents, we're weak, we fall into sin, but through our sacramental marriage, we get all the graces we need. So Jim and I relied very heavily on the graces of the sacrament, just like God prepared the Blessed Mother for what she needed to do through the Immaculate Conception. Through our sacramental marriage, He prepared us for everything that we needed. So to give concrete examples, I'm going to talk about the 3 virtues of obedience, modesty, and piety in our family life. By my talk tonight, I'm not saying that these are the only rules or the only way to do it in your family. These are just examples of what worked for us, and to trust yourself. And God created our families with a hierarchy. The father is the patriarch of the family, and myself as the wife, I am his helpmate, and we are a team, and we do everything together with the grace of God, through prayer, through asking God what needs to be done. And we have the beautiful Catholic Church to rely on, the virtues and the truths of the church. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is obedience. I'll tell you some of first, I want to explain what the virtue of obedience is. So we live in a world that says, I'll do what you say, but you have to prove it to me. Prove to me that I have to listen to you, that this makes sense to me. But we all know, as we're raising children, there are some rules that we have that they're not going to understand. So, we have to trust in the system that God created, that through prayer and through our sacramental marriage, that we'll get the graces to know what's right. So, for example, we would have the rule of no TVs in the children's bedrooms, no computers in the children's bedrooms, and internet was only used in the common area. The reason for that is the world has so many distractions, and we only get 18 years with our children. And after 18 years, they have what they have when they leave the house, and there's so many distractions for them. So while they're children, we want to do everything possible to help them just have virtue and be ready to do whatever God needs them to do. So in our house, we had a lot of family time together, and we had friends, and we had our parents, who would tell them, like, you're too strict with your children, but our children grew up feeling very loved and very secure, and we were available for them. As children grow up, especially teenagers, you never know when they're going to want to talk to you, when they're going to, feel like, okay, I want to tell you about this. And when there's all the distractions of TVs or even cell phones. We don't give our children cell phones until they graduate from high school. And people would say, that's crazy. They can't possibly have jobs and not have a cell phone. But our 5 children did, and in high school they all had jobs, and we survived before cell phones came along, without always being able to pick up the phone at a drop of a hat. But we went against what the world says you just have to give your children, by just following what God put on our hearts and what we knew as parents, and knowing what the children need. And our children don't resent us. Everyone would be like, oh, if you don't give them this freedom, they'll resent you, they'll rebel against you. And They didn't rebel against us. They are very secure, stable children. And as teenagers, they had friends. You know, we didn't make them fearful of the world. We just provided structure and a safe environment for them. You know, some other rules that people told us you can't have is our children did not go to dances. When they were in high school, you know, when there would be dances or the prom, you know, our children did not go. We believed in the Catholic Church teaching that, you know, dating is to discern a spouse. And when they're in high school, they're, you know, that's their time to mature emotionally and spiritually. And, you know, hearts fall quickly. You know, they fall in love and they get distracted and they can't do anything with all those emotions. And, you know, we're not anti-dancing, you know, but there's a time and a place for it. In high school, that wasn't the time or place for it. And we got a lot of criticism from, you know, other friends that were like, that's absurd, you're denying them this great experience, and all 5 of my kids are just fine, you know, and you know, you're parents, you know, and you know human nature. And a dance is very intimate, you know, girls can't, I have 4 daughters, you know, they can't help but like want a boy to think they're pretty or want to like them. So we just didn't put them in that situation. We have a son, you know, he's going to fall for some girl when he's in high school. And it's like, you can't do anything with that at that time. So just to protect their hearts. But they did do co-ed events in high school. They, you know, they would have game nights with other teenagers. They would go bowling, or they would do miniature golf, or have bonfires. Very safe environments that didn't involve the heart so much. So our children are not allowed to date until they graduate from high school. Like I said, the dances. But our children had a fun childhood. They, you know, there was a lot of time in the house. They had lots of friends. They did work, you know. So that was our virtue of obedience. And then the next virtue is modesty. So that's a big one in this world. So the world says they can wear whatever they want, you know, everyone just has to protect their eyes. Like if you have a young, you know, son, you just teach him. You teach him not to look at girls, you know, when they're revealing everything to him, right? So anyway, we just tried to do our part in our family. And, you know, our friends who were also raising children were like, you gotta let the girls just buy what's out there. And we're like, nope. You know, our children, you know, did wear jeans. Our girls did wear jeans. They could not be painted on jeans. They were never allowed to wear leggings out of the house. Or now they just look like tights that people can wear. And we had, you know, friends tell us, well, it's too hard. You can't find modest clothing. Well, I can tell you we're a middle-class family. We don't, you know, we don't go to designer, you know, department stores or anything. We shop at Target. We shop at all the regular, you know, Walmart and Meijer and Kohl's, you know, all the basic stores. And we were still able to find modest clothing. To explain, you know, to you what our modest rules were, especially because I had 4 girls. First, I did not make them wear loose, you know, sacks. You know, they wore nice clothes. So our rules were no spaghetti strap, nothing that will show undergarments you can see your undergarments because your top shirt isn't big enough for it. My girls always had to raise their arms and their stomach could not be showing. And then the straps, you know, if they did wear a t-shirt, you know, it had to have full coverage. Could never be more than 4 fingers from the top of the neck so that they were free to bend over and not have to worry about exposing themselves. We didn't do this in a sense of like the female body is, you know, don't look at it, we weren't like that, you know. As parents, you logically know what's reasonable and what's not reasonable, you know. We weren't ashamed of the female body. We want our girls like move around, like don't have to worry about like revealing your, you know, yourself. In terms of church, when going to Mass, we girls always had to wear skirts to their knees, and that was so that when they sat down in the pew, they weren't exposing their whole leg, and they could bend over and not worry about showing anything behind. We just want them to be comfortable, like move around. And they always did wear a skirt or a dress to Mass. At Mass, they did have to cover their shoulders, and we weren't being extra prude. It's just respecting the beautiful body that God made in woman and man. Let's see what else with the modesty also was a big benefit when they were dating. While they all four of my girls have dated and had boyfriends, and their boyfriends would tell them they were so grateful that they did dress modestly, because purity's hard for young men and women. And they were very grateful that, they were already so attracted to each other as male and female that, they weren't revealing everything to them. So the boyfriends and the fiancés were very helpful for my daughters dressing very modestly. We would have other people, at church who would say, they were very grateful that they didn't have to worry about their sons being distracted at church, because they can see every part of the girls, praying in front of them. So I'm not saying you have to follow these rules. I'm just saying you don't have to do what the world says you have to do. If the world, the world has these fashions and this is what's fashionable right now, get with the times. I'm just saying you don't have to. As a husband and wife, decide together what you're comfortable with the children wearing. Don't let the world tell you what you have to let them wear. As the mother and father. The last virtue I'd like to talk about is piety. So we only get 18 years, like I said before. So we want to get these habits into our children, because when they go out in the world, there's going to be a million things fighting for their time. So we want to give them habits that they can keep with them as they become adults. So the church, they go to Mass every Sunday and holidays, holy days, of course. But we all know they don't want to just talk to their friends for 1 hour on Sunday. So we also teach them that you must go to Mass at least once during the week. So we would also be told, well, when they're teenagers, they're working and they're going to school. You can't make them go to Mass once a week. Well, you live in our house, until you're 18, you go to Mass during the week. And we are so lucky these days with the Catholic Church. We've lived in 3 different states. We lived in Michigan before we moved here 10 years ago. And then 10 years before that, we lived in Virginia. And all 3 places, we could always find a very early Mass or at least an evening Mass during the week. And that just reminded the children that you know what? Visit God during the week too. He's not just a Sunday check off a box. During the week, go to Mass. And especially here in Bloomington-Normal, we have Epiphany has Mass at 7 a.m. Historic St. Pat's has Mass twice during the week at 5:30 at night. So there was never excuse for all 5 of our children to go to school, work, and just spend 1 hour. They'll easily spend time going to visit their friends, so if you can, our thing was, if you can go visit your friends, you definitely can spend 1 hour getting to Mass. So we did have them do that. We did, adoration. Ever since our children were babies, we would take them to 1 hour of adoration a week. And most times we didn't have the opportunity to actually go to Eucharist adoration when Jesus is on the altar in the monstrance, but often he was just in the tabernacle, but that was fine. We would go to church for 1 hour a week, and when they're little kids, they each get a notebook, and they just color pictures, just draw pictures. I would always put on the top of each page, I would ask them, do you want to address this to Dear God, Dear Mary, maybe a particular saint? It had to be a holy person that they were drawing a picture for. And then once they were able to write, I would make them write at least half a page, and they would have to address it to dear God, dear Jesus, to someone. You know, if we want to expect them to have a prayer life when they leave the house and they're adults, they need to learn to have this constant conversation with Jesus or God or whoever they want to specifically pray to. Again, you know, for some reason in our society, our world, once you get to be a teenager, all bets are off. Like, supposedly you have no control over your children anymore, no rights to your children, which is not true. You know, you do, as the parents, have the right to say, you need to go to 1 hour of adoration. You know, that's a loving gesture to them. You know, all of our children are now adults. They go to mass during the week. They do a holy hour. It's a gift that, you know, that you're giving them. Like, you know, when we're raising them and we're in the middle of it, people will be like, you're so, you know, you have all these rules for them. But it really gives them freedom. It gives them somewhere to go when they have worries and, you know, concerns. So they just want to sit in silence. You know, it's an incredible gift to actually give to them. It's not this burden that you're putting on them. And so all of our children, you know, as adults now, you know, they'll go once a week and have that quiet time with God. And that's because it's a habit, you know. And so other things that we do is novenas. So novenas are a beautiful treasure of the church. So for 9 days, you know, you say a particular prayer before maybe a feast day. It doesn't even have to be a feast day. It can just be any day. Our family, we particularly love St. Anthony of Padua, so which is June 13th is his feast day. And so 9 days before, we say the novena. And then like the Immaculate Conception is a big one for us. So we do 9 days before the Immaculate Conception, we say the prayer. You know, now my children as adults, like if they have a big decision coming up or something, they know to pick a saint or they'll pick the Blessed Mother. You can say a novena at any point. But for 9 days, they get to practice that patience that we always tell them. You got to be patient in this world. You have to be patient. Novenas are a beautiful thing the church gives us, because for 9 days, they have to just keep giving it to God. Here it is, God. I don't know what to do with this. I'm worried about this. They have 9 days to keep giving it to him, to slow down and just wait. And so we always did novenas with the children, and it's just beautiful now that they'll just say, oh, Mom, I got to say a novena. Something's coming up. And they just have to relax. I have one daughter who's very, very sanguine, one of the 26-year-old daughters, and she's always doing the 54-day rosary novena, and which I personally am not so good at 54 days. I can handle 9 days, but she needs it because she's always like, Mom, she's got all these thoughts. But when it's like, I need to slow down, I'm worried about this, but it's in the future, she's got 54 days where she's saying a rosary each day for 54 days. So the church knows what it's doing when it gives us these beautiful traditions to carry on. So the church has sacraments and sacramentals. So a scapular, all of my children wear a scapular. And this is a beautiful sacramental that the church gives us. As soon as our children start school, we get them invested with a scapular. And it's interesting because the scapular is not so comfortable, you know, it kind of moves around a bit, and it reminds them that they've been set aside for Mary. Like Mary, the Blessed Mother, will take care of them. And so all of our children wear scapulars, and it's really good when you get into the teenage years, and sometimes the girls, you know, they might get a little cranky that, you know, like, you know, does my strap have to be that wide? You know, it's still covering my undergarment, but like a scapular, you know, needs to be covered under, you know, you wear it under your clothing. So that helps a bit remind them of the modesty. When they're dating, you know, a scapular also reminds you, you know, that like, I have to remember purity and chastity, you know, and so a scapular is a wonderful tool. All the children wear scapulars, and the rosary, of course the rosary. We do the rosary as a family and teach them that it's only 15 minutes. and so people would be like, a rosary, we have so much going on, we don't have time for a rosary. It's 15 minutes. You can do 15 minutes. And if you're doing it all your life for 18 years, then it's not so daunting. It's just a habit. It's just something you do. You have fond memories of, we always did this together after dinner. It just becomes natural that you do it. And so our children all still say the rosary, and the rosary is so powerful. We all know how powerful the rosary is, but we're very blessed as parents. We have all of these tools that the Catholic Church gives us, just like the Immaculate Conception. And, the Blessed Mother was prepared for this amazing vocation to be the mother of God. We as parents have an amazing mission, to raise up these children that are God's children, for whatever vocation he has for them. And, but we don't do it alone. We do it with the grace of God through our sacramental marriage. So, tonight, I just hope you take away that, you don't have to let the world raise your children. They don't make the rules for you. You two together, you're a team together. You know what feels right. Stick to what feels right. Don't worry about what other people tell you. Jim and I got no support. There were no family members, no friends, who said, keep going, doing what you're doing. We just relied on the church. We relied on the truths of the church to give us the confidence to keep doing what we're doing. And we're very grateful to God for all the guidance we've gotten. And, there are definitely bumps in the road as we're raising our kids, but we have a lot of tools to help us. So I hope this helps you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Missy, if I may ask, without family leisure activities, without gadgets, I know your family is big with board games, right? So things like that will help. Like, how do you make them interested in reading, for example, right? What type of books, so that it will help us know any inputs on that?
Okay, so we do a lot of board games as a family, but we love reading all different kinds of things. My husband's very into science fiction. So my children are all Star Wars geeks. So they all love Star Wars and Star Trek and stuff like that. What's so great nowadays the internet's amazing that you can find just list of good books to read. We did end up choosing to homeschool, so we did end up homeschooling all of our children. And so I did have reader's guides that would list, but you can go online and find any lists of good books to read.
Well, if you don't have a television on in the house and video games and all of that, that's just a natural choice, right? There's the old time video game, which is a book, and you can sit and go anywhere you want, and kids get used to it. And you do it during holy hour, read about saints, do it during car rides. So.
And he would read when they're really little, he would always read aloud, well, actually all the way through high school. He always would read aloud to the kids, which is really sweet. In the olden days, before there were TV, they would read aloud to the kids. And there's no reason we had to stop doing that just because there's TV. So he often would read aloud, Treasure Island and the old classics, and there are so many great old classics.
You said you drink a lot of water.
Because you're thirsty. I was like, alcohol, we're not going there. Because he was wonderful reading aloud to the kids. And we did do a lot of board games together as a family. And it's just great. The kid, we have such a relationship with the kids that there just weren't those distractions. We just talk so much to them. And it's beautiful now because when they bring boyfriends we didn't have anyone bring a girlfriend home since he went into the seminary, but when you bring boyfriends home and you already play board games, that's an easy thing to get to know whoever they're bringing in. And that's been wonderful with having boyfriends, and we have 2 son-in-laws, so that works. But a lot of the classics we would read, and what other? We did the old-fashioned stuff. We took a lot of long walks together as a family. We would go hiking. That's pretty. That's it. We would talk about, current events, just, there's, you definitely don't get bored, and it's amazing because, if you do give them all the electronics and stuff like that, people will be like, oh my gosh, what do you, when you take those away, you have nothing to talk about, but you do. And what's great, online, they have all kinds of what is it that your family, where do you find questions, discussion questions, table topics or things
current events, is that what you're talking about?
Right, no, but when they'll say you remember those books that you just you do at dinner time, questions?
Oh yeah, conversation starters.
Conversation starters, yeah. You can get a lot of, they sell just family conversation starters. And it sounds silly or corny, but the kids love it. And they love to hear what mom and dad reminisce about. They're what is, different memories from childhood. And then, now the kids are adults, so they like to remember things that they did. But Tracy, my homeschool friend from Michigan, she actually has 11 children. And so they also, don't do the TV, don't do the computer, and just, the conversation starters were always a fun thing to do. We are so lucky with the internet. I mean, there's just so many ideas, brainstorming ideas of what to do with your kids without TV or without computers. So, does that help?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure routine is very crucial, right, in a family life. If you can share about that, because Loreto keeps reminding me and Jonathan, if you don't have a routine, things are going to be, you won't develop good habits.
And speaking about that, also, we're very strict on bedtime. I mean, we give our children everything. So it's even when they were teenagers, at 9:30, they went into their rooms. And in their rooms, they could read, they could journal if they wanted to journal. And, all the way up till 18. And we would have friends be like, you cannot put a teenager in their room at 9:30. And it's yeah, we can. Because all the rest of the time, we're talking to them and we're entertaining them. And we also never accepted teenagers have to stay up till midnight and then you have to let them sleep till 10 or 11. Nope. We're in a very indulgent age, but before people had to get up to take care of farm animals, and it wasn't sorry, cows and pigs and stuff. I'm a teenager, so I can't help you till 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't work. We're still the same human beings, who need to go to bed at a right time. And it's funny because my son's in the seminary and they're very strict. 9:30, he has to be in his room. And these are men who are, from age 20 to 35 who are in the seminary with him, lights out at 9:30 and they're up at 5:30 in the morning. And he didn't have any trouble. He was just my mom and dad made me do that anyway, not 5:30 in the morning, but he was used to that. There's no reason they need to go through this, teenage years where it's their bodies are different. They're still human beings that still have to function. So we are very set on bedtime and wake up time.
Going to mass regularly each week, so you know when you're going, saying the rosary daily at a certain time of day, right? Setting up morning prayers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's habit. You have to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And people will say that they need flexibility and you shouldn't have, but they feel so free because they know what to expect. With the schedule and all.
Yeah, I think Luke transitioned into the seminary so easily because he had such a regulated schedule.
That regimen, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone with a question?
I was just going to make a comment when you guys talk about reading. You also do, for your children for Holy Hour, you will recommend a spiritual book and say you should take this to Holy Hour. So I think it's just another...
if anybody wanted book lists, you can ask Loretto and I can give it to Loretto of I do have books that will go starting in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, just different recreational books to read. So if you needed other ideas or anything, you can just let me know and I can give you lists of books to read.
So the Catholic, so the message becomes that it's the Catholic Church that we kind of solely rely on. It's not somebody, handholds you, but because you're raised in the church and you trust what the church teaches, not just for going to mass as an activity, but then the whole thing guides your life. Your life is, subsumed. Your faith dictates what you do in your life. So, but why did we even look at homeschool, and why do we even talk of Catholic Church when we talk of education? Is this all that is given to us through the church may or may not be Catholic. It's a sad thing to state, but it's an important thing to state at the same time. And this is not something which I say in criticism of the parish or some of the parish or even the church. But everywhere there is business going on, and there can be error in that. Even in a pickle bottle, you could say, something is 20 grams, but it could be 35 grams. We're capable of error. There is error. That doesn't mean the church teaches error. It means that it has been delivered with error. So we have to always see what the church said, what Jesus said, what the apostles said, what every church father said since then. And when did it get changed? Like Chinese whisper, when did the story change? And if it has changed, we have to go back to the gospel, to go back to what the apostles said and hold on to that, hold fast to that. So that's the thing. So some of the things that she said or what I said or said before may or may not be things that you have done. If somebody has sent their child to prom, doesn't mean it has suddenly become sinful because Mrs. Blumberg didn't send her children to prom. We didn't send Jonathan to prom either. Doesn't mean everybody who sent their child to prom or will send their child to prom will sin. That's not the case. To emphasize that, I'd like to, and I'm stealing this from a really good priest, we have to treat the soul like a car. If the person, the mechanic tells you your car has this particular problem, you don't get defensive and say, you cannot say that about my car. My car is good. I paid so much for it. I love to drive it. Everybody says it's a good car. No, you look into that problem, you spend the money that you need to spend so that that car, in which, in this case, our soul, remains intact and ready and worthy enough to go to heaven. And so that's the whole point, why we are, seeking each other's help so that, okay, if you followed Catholic teaching and with that conviction you raise your children, let me also, benefit from some insights from you so that my children, their souls will be, protected on this earth. So whether we're sending our children to public school or Catholic school, we have to be on guard because corruption can come from the least expected of sources. And because people are not coming to church, because everybody finds it boring or, like she said, so many examples, that's why the worldly things come into the church. We dance in the church, we ring bells and play drums. All those things enter the church so that we can keep people in the church. That doesn't make it correct. We're just trying to keep doing our level best to keep people inside the church. So we bring a little bit of the world inside. When we do that, holiness goes out. So we have to be very clear where we want our children's souls and our souls to be headed. And quickly, I want to give you an example of a reel which came across while I was scrolling through Facebook. It's a beautiful reel. It's not a religious one. It's about a girl who is getting married, and she's got the white wedding dress of her mother, who got married like a few decades ago. Beautiful wedding dress. And she is altering it for her own wedding. She's not buying a new wedding dress. She's altering it. And she shows in detail how she altered it, all those sequins and all those things, how she did it. And those are beautiful hacks which we can learn and we can do it ourselves. So I love to watch what she showed, how she, carefully cut and put everything aside, and then she brought it all back together. And the finished product, my friends, I would like to tell you, she wore it on her wedding day. And what do you think it looked like? It was till here. It had no straps whatsoever. It had a low neckline. And you could bend, she was a fat girl. She would bend and dance and you could see everything. And I want to use that example to tell, if we don't give our children what we received from Christ and through the apostles in that concentration, what will remain down the generations? But let's sow the right seeds and water it and nurture it. And let's not expect we'll sow, A seed and expect B fruit. It's not going to happen. So that's the point of having this topic and for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. But this topic brings home to us that, no, she's our model. She is the model of the church. She's model for each of us. And we too are prepared through the graces of the Sacrament of Matrimony to, be ready for the mission in this world, to cross this world and all its evils and distractions and get to the other side, the golden shore. So thank you so much, and brings up many questions. And I wish to just clarify, when she says dating, when she says boyfriends, in some minds it may be about going with multiple people. No, she's talked about dating being an exercise to find a spouse. Means a spouse is a spouse forever. So a boyfriend is somebody you go with in order to find a future spouse. So that's the context. I just don't want any, communication gap because of cultural differences. And routine is an important thing. And prayer sets a routine for us, because our Lord himself said, pray without ceasing. And the church follows that, they pray 6 or 7 times a day. So all that sets a structure. So let's benefit from all of that Mother Church has given us. Thank you for bringing that aspect to the fore and being great witnesses to the Catholic life. Thank you for accompanying that. Thank you.